Hello and welcome. Please join me today for a get ready with me, and we're going to feature some new products like the new VFR Blushes, new Fenty Gloss Bomb Sticks, as well as some of my favorites. And I think we've created a really kind of just a classic everyday look with a little bit of a pop. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm starting off with the SUQQU Activated Botanical Primer, and this is a primer that kind of refreshes your skincare a bit. It adds a little moisture. And my skin, with the changing of the seasons and allergies starting, everything it needs a refresh. So I like how lightweight it is, yet it feels infused with moisture. And I'm just gonna let this sit for a second while I get out concealer and foundation. Next, I'm taking the Sisley Blur Expert Powder. I wear shade 0. This is the SUQQU Buff and Blur brush. And it's just a nice, dense buffing brush. And I'm just going to use this to kind of buff this into my skin. And you can see just from this side how much blurring effect I get just from the powder alone. So I love using this powder underneath my foundation to just add a little bit more. It's kind of a powder primer. So if you're not somebody who uses a liquid primer or anything, you can either use this after a liquid or you can use this in place of. Next, I'm taking the Valentino concealer, and this is the shade LIGR2. And it is a lightening brightening concealer. So just going to add this, and then I'm just letting it sit for just a few seconds because it does help dry out the formula a little bit more. You get a little bit more opacity there. And then I'm going to go ahead and buff that in. I'm going to take the SUQQU Jumbo Concealer today, and I'm just going to go ahead and pat in my concealer. And I like to do my concealer underneath my foundation just because I feel like it looks a bit more natural for me. And I don't like heavy concealers typically. If I do want something with more coverage, I'll go with something more like the Chanel Sublimage concealer, or something like a stick concealer like the Cle de Peau, or I've been using the OG Face Stick as well. And those will give me a lot more coverage. I can build them on, and I just tap them on with my finger. Now for foundation, we're going to go in with one of my favorites. You can see this one, I'm getting close to the end. This is the Radiant Cream Foundation. I wear shade I-10. And so this is the foundation I use. I want my skin to look more perfect. It's more of a full coverage foundation, and it definitely provides a lot of coverage here. So I could go in actually with maybe I should, so I don't have to reuse or wash another brush, but we'll take the SUQQU brush, and let me just go ahead and put this on, and I'll bring you in closer so you can see the coverage. All right, so here's just a little bit of this foundation. Now, this foundation does have full coverage, so if I wanted my skin to be fully covered with the foundation, no like sheerness to it, I would actually prime my brush in the foundation and go ahead and paint it on that way. But I actually want less coverage with this because it is going to be a little bit of a thicker foundation. And yeah, I don't know. For some reason during the daytime, I prefer something more lightweight. If I'm going out at night, I like something a little heavier. So I just want a thin layer of this. And one of the great things about this foundation is that if you actually want to lighten this, instead of even just shearing this out, you can mix it with like a moisturizer or, something like a liquid illuminator or something to kind of shear out the finish. But this is what it looks like right now. Before we move on to anything else, we're going to take a look at the VFR blushes. So VFR came out with 2 new blush shades here, and I love their blushes. So let me just show you how they come packaged first. And we have a pull off lid, which does give you the twist up marbled blush. This is our more nude shade. This is called Armani. And let's go ahead. We'll swatch this next to the foundation here. And you can see this is going to be a nice brown, nice toasty brown. I could probably just use this as a bronzer even, or it's got a little bit of red in there. And then the other end here has a brush, which does twist off for washing, which is great. So I think they're nicely designed. This other shade here is Miriam. You can see this one here is going to be a nice deep berry shade. So let's go ahead and we'll put this one on this side. And this is going to be more of a red with a touch of berry in it. So let me go ahead and let's do the cheek swatches. So as you're looking at the cheek swatches, I wanted to use the SUQQU Classic Base Brush. I have two of them, so I'm using separate brushes for each shade. And what I did was I just, added a little bit more product to my hand of the color, swirled the brush in it. So you can really see the lightest application. You can see how it layers. And overall, I would say that Miriam is going to be the more pigmented shade. The red shade's more pigmented than Marni. Marni definitely has a nice reddish bronzy shade to it that you could definitely use as bronzer contour. And then we went in with a fingertip application to really see how much you can get from this color. So I think these colors are definitely ones that can be worn on light skin tones as well as deep skin tones. And there's a nice range. They blend out easily. These will set down and last all day. They're a really beautiful formula and they don't move on me throughout the day. Just a few product details. We have 7 grams of product in each. They're vegan, made in Italy with a 2-year shelf life. Now what I've chosen to do for today's look is use Marni directly from the bullet, kind of towards the back of my cheekbone. And then I use Miriam, again, dipped the brush into product that's on my hand for a lighter application towards the front. So I'm kind of mixing the two shades. It adds nice depth and dimension here. All right, so here is the blush. And then for highlight, let's go in with the Armani Luminous Silk. This is in shade 3. I'm going to bring you in closer. So I'm going to put a swatch here, kind of just on the back of my hand. And I'm going to dip into this with my fingertip and just add a little bit of luminosity here. I want just a tiny bit, but these sheer highlighters, these are so great for either mixing into things or you can go in more subtly like I am here or build it up. You know what? Let's add a little bit more. Let me just add more to my hand here. All right, so let's just add a little bit more. And I really like this shade 3 because it is more of a nude champagne. And I think it kind of goes with everything. So there's the highlight. Let me know what you think. I love the combination. So since the cheeks are rather pigmented and we are going to go in with some shimmery lipsticks, I figure we'll keep the eyes a bit more understated. We're going to go in with one of my favorite everyday palettes. This is Cle de Peau's #1 Sand Dune. So let me go ahead and swatch this first. So we have this soft satin shimmer. You can see this is going to be a soft, more of a taupe beige. And then we have a slightly deeper satin shade next. And this third shade, this is actually a cream primer. So we'll use this as our eye primer. You can see it's a very soft light pink, but it's gonna not really have much of a color on the skin. And then our last shade here is gonna be a matte cocoa brown. So this is Sand Dune. Let me bring you in closer. All right, so we're gonna go in with the primer first, and this is the VFR B01. This is a synthetic brush. I'm just gonna use this to get the primer kind of all over. You can see I kind of got a little bit of the brown powder in there, but let's try to avoid that. You can see putting this on that I do get like a soft pink kind of iridescence here. I think it's a really pretty shade. Now, honestly, I think I'd still rather have a regular shadow versus these, the primer formulas in these quads, but these are some of my favorite quads because I feel like they work so well on my eyes. Nothing's irritating for me. We've got some beautiful color stories. They last all day on me, and I feel like they help as my eyes are maturing, and especially after eye swatches when they look a little sore, I feel like the Cle de Peau quads are ones that I can count on to kind of disguise some of those effects. Next, I'm taking the SUQQU. This is the Classic Crease from the Sky series. I'm going to go into the second shade in the palette, and I'm just going to add a little bit of this to the crease. I'm going in very softly, And actually we're going deep in the crease with the deeper color here, but I kind of want to blow it out a little bit in the crease here. Next, I'm taking a Sonia G Crease M brush, and I'm going to go into the deep brown here. And I'm just dabbing the excess off on my microfiber cloth. And again, I always keep that on my lap while I am applying makeup. So just going to deepen the crease a little bit with this one. And before I move in with any more shadow, I'm going to take the YSL. This is the Lines Liberated in number 2. And I'm just going to kind of loosely put this along the upper lash line. We're going to smudge this in a little bit. So I'm just using the other end of the eyeliner brush to kind of soften this. You can see I'm actually kind of using the wider portion of it as well. And just kind of, not a real wing per se, but just wing it out a little bit there. Next, I'm taking the Sonia G Soft Shader, one of my favorite eye brushes of all time. I have 5 of them. That's how much I like, and I use this one just so much. I'm going in with the lightest shade here, and I'm just going to go ahead and put this all over the mobile lid here. All right, so next I'm taking this is one of the VFR eyelash curlers. This one is 20R, and I'm just doing a series of 3 along the lashes from root to tip. And then we're gonna go in with the Chanel Le Volume de Chanel mascara. And this one I have in brown, and it comes in brown, blue, and black, and of course, I made a mess. I'm not great at applying mascara while speaking. It's just never a skill that I gained. It's funny, you know, when I was like in high school and all my friends started wearing makeup, a lot of them would wear just like eyeliner and mascara to school. And I like never wore mascara. I don't know why, but that was, for me, it was always lip products. But mascara was something that I just didn't really wear very often. So I'm just going to go ahead and take, this is my Tweezerman eyelash comb, and I've had this since I was a teenager, and it's metal, so you have to be super careful, but I just use it to separate my lashes. I don't need to use this all the time, but I did kind of make a mess there. For brows, I'm feeling kind of lazy. So I'm taking the SUQQU eyebrow gel, and this one here is the SUQQU Coloring Eyebrow in 02. And when I am feeling really lazy with brows, I use this or the Tom Ford Fiber Brow Gel, which I feel like is not the easiest to find anymore. So the SUQQU one though, I really like this one. It is soft. You can see I need to get my brows done, but yeah, it's soft. It doesn't feel all stiff. I don't get any white flakes. It lasts all day. I think if you have super unruly brows, you need to use the clear one on top of this to get a little bit more control. But for me, it works well. So this is what we have now. I think it's just like a great everyday neutral look, but we're going to pump it up with a little bit of shimmer. First, let me just show you the swatches for the Cle de Peau just one more time. And this is going to be palette number 1, Sand Dune. And one thing to mention about their palettes, they are refillable, but they're not magnetic. So these do come in plastic containers. You can purchase just the refill. It comes in like a plastic clamshell, and it's totally usable that way. I actually have one like that, and then they snap into the packaging. So it does come with utensils. Honestly, I don't use them. I take them out and I just use my eye brushes. So I have a drawer full of all the little utensils from my eyeshadow palettes. Let's go ahead and move on to lips. All right, so as we're looking at the lip swatches here, we're looking at the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb Sticks. So these are a new high shimmer gloss stick. I purchased 3 different shades. So we have number 2, Fussy, 4, Amethyst Ice, of course, or Icy Amethyst, and 5, Flamingo Fling. And these have 3.6 grams of product. They're made in Korea with a 1-year shelf life. The packaging is plastic and we have a pentagon shape, so it's not going to roll or anything like that. And I think that's nice. It is easy to actually either make like kind of a honeycomb shape in a drawer, or, you know, you've got different ways to stack these and store these, which I find very helpful. There's a strong fruity fragrance with these. They feel smooth, glossy, you know, kind of like a lip gloss in stick form, you know, something kind of like a Chantecaille Lip Chic, but not as much of that vinyl texture that you get with that. Feels a little more buttery per se. And we've got a ton of shimmer. So you can put this on with a light layer. You can mix these with other things, or you can really bling out with these. And one of the great things is they don't feel gritty. So my lips are actually very, very chapped and dry right now. But you can see that even that isn't, you know, the shimmer and so forth in there is not accentuating any of those issues. And I think they're just fun to play with, you know, whether you want to just add a subtle shimmer to a lipstick, you can just dab a little bit on top. You could, you know, mix this with something else like a lip balm. You know, I mixed 2 different colors here for today's look to kind of get something a little bit more neutral from Fussy, but then have the fun of the Icy Amethyst, yet not too much. So I think they're just really fun to play with, and they're very smooth and comfortable on the lips. I think they're a really nice formula. And here is the final look. So aside from the lips, we have something very neutral, very everyday, something very classic. And I've decided to pair it with some more neutral jewelry here. And then the lips just add a little bit of fun, a little brightness to it. So it's definitely something easy to change out. But this is one of my go-to eyeshadow quads. You know, I love this for every day. Let's go ahead and just swatch and talk about everything that we use today. So we started off with the OG primer. This is the Activated Botanical Primer. And there is a cap that comes with this, but honestly, it also has one of those little twisting functions to close it off. And so that's what I do instead. The cap is somewhere around here. But this is a primer I reach for a lot. It really refreshes my skincare. It feels more like a lightweight serum moisturizer. And it has a 6-month shelf life, which is the drawback, but it is organic. And that's what results in the shorter shelf life. Then we went in with the Sisley Blur Expert Powder, which is a go-to of mine. I use this pretty much every day, and I've had this for like forever. So ever since they came out with shade 0, there is a shade 1, which is lighter, but you can see how much product is still here. It's very densely, firmly packed powder, so you do want to use some sort of dense buffing brush to apply it. And this is a powder that I personally prefer to use underneath foundation. I think gives a nice soft blur. You don't get a powdery effect. When I use this on top of foundation, you know, it's like if everything's perfect and everything goes right, then it works really well. But otherwise, it can make my skin look really dry. So it's definitely one that I use underneath. And that was its intended purpose when it originally came out as well. We followed that up with the Valentino Concealer, which is my go-to lightening brightening concealer. And this is my 2nd or 3rd tube of this since it came out. I love this concealer. So I actually have a backup on hand. And yeah, it's such a great product. It's going to give more light to medium coverage. For foundation, we went in with the Cle de Peau Radiant Cream Foundation. I wear shade I-10, and I think this is a great foundation because not only can you sheer this out if you choose, you can also build this up and you have more of that radiant full coverage complexion. So whenever I have very irritated skin on my cheeks and I'm really trying to disguise some of that redness, like after I've done a ton of blush swatches, that's when I reach for this. This is also my go-to if I have a special event to go to. Because it really does kind of just hide any sort of discoloration I have without me having to go in and work at it. So this is a fantastic foundation. And again, you can see I've used quite a bit of this one. Because we were going with cream blushes, because I was going in with cream blushes, I did not use a powder today. And let's just do a few quick comparisons of the new VFR shades. All right, so I'm going to take the 2 new shades and make vertical line here for these. We'll do it kind of like on either side here. So this is Marnie, and we'll just kind of buff this one out a bit here. And you can see it's a nice brown with a bit of red in it. So think of like, you know, more of the Mexican hot chocolate style with a little bit of cayenne in it. That's kind of what it makes me think of. And then we have Miriam. I'll put that on this side, which is more of a red with a touch of berry in it. Now, the VFR blushes are marbled, which I think, you know, it helps blend things out. You get a very natural look. And these are the two new shades. So we have Marnie, the brown, and Miriam, the red. Let's take a look at their other shades. So I have loved these since they first came out. We have Louise, which is going to be more of your nude peach. This is a great everyday shade, and you can really, you know, kind of sheer this out. I'll just buff out a little bit of the top piece here so you can kind of see what that looks like. But this is going to be your neutral, kind of like everyday shade here. And then we have Inez, which is going to be a brighter, soft pink. And this one has some warmth to it. So think of maybe more of a soft watermelon crossed with strawberry pink. Aisa is the berry. So these are the first three shades that came out. And then last summer, we also got a new shade called Melanie. So we'll go with that. Now you can see the difference. Aisa is definitely going to have more purples, more of a true berry, whereas Miriam definitely has more red to it. And then Melanie is going to be really beautiful coral shade. And I love this one. This is actually one of my favorites. I would say Melanie and Louise are the two that I have used the most. So these are the shades. So just one more time, we have Marnie and Miriam. This is Louise. Then we have Inez. Then we have Aisa and Melanie. Up here, we have our eyeshadow palette, and that is the Cle de Peau eyeshadow palette in Sand Dune #1, which is one of my favorites. It's, you know, your soft neutral browns. These are pretty neutral, but there's a little bit of coolness to it. So it's neutral leaning slightly cool. Here are our swatches. We do have a primer in here that gives you a nice soft pink pearly look. And I do find that the primer works well. I purchased this when they first launched. My primer shade, still no issues with it. Even though this is one I use a lot, you can see the powder. I don't get powder dust in the primer. It actually stays pretty clean, which surprises me. But you know, it performs really well. So I think overall they're fantastic quads, some of my favorites, and this is definitely one of my top ones. The purple, the blue, and the green, and this one, those are my top four. Then we went in with the Armani Luminous Silk Aqua Highlighter, and this here is shade 3, which is kind of like a nude champagne. And I love this one because it blends in with the skin really well, and I think it can look really natural. So you can dab it on lightly like I did today, or you can build it up a little bit. The formula dries relatively quickly and it sets and stays put. There's no texture left on your skin, and it just like kind of blends seamlessly. So I think this is a really great highlighter. Oh, and I almost forgot the eyeliner we used today. This is the YSL in #2, which is one of my favorites. I love these YSL liners because they're smooth, they're creamy, but they blend out and they set. So, you know, they're just as creamy as like the Victoria Beckham, but they do set for me better than hers do. You can see this is a nice medium tone brown. It complements the palette really well. For mascara, we went in with the Chanel Le Volume de Chanel, and this is their brown. You can see it's going to be a deep, true neutral brown. And a lot of the browns that are coming out right now have a bit more of a reddish tint. So it's nice to find something that's kind of a true brown. So we've got that, and then I used the SUQQU eyebrow gel in #2. You can kind of see that color there. So it's going to be kind of like that taupey blonde shade. Next, we went in with the Farrah Hamidi lip pencil in Fawn, which, you know, I featured recently in another video. I love this one. I keep reaching for it because it's a great nude. So this is brown with a touch of rose in it. And then we used the new Sisley. These are their gloss bomb sticks, which is basically a super glittery gloss. in a stick form. So this shade here is number 2, Fussy, her classic shade. And you can see it is kind of a warm pink. And the glitter in here is actually a bit more multicolored. You have more of that iridescent opalescent vibe from the glitter. Next, we have number 4, Icy Amethyst. And this one here is not going to be quite as opaque. You can build it up to be a bit more opaque, but you can see this one works really well as a topper because it has a more sheer quality to it. So this is going to be a cool tone, pinky lavender base, but the majority of the shimmer on here is going to be a blue purple flip. So that's kind of what cools it off. The base itself is going to be a little bit warmer with a bit more pink violet, but it's a shimmer in there that's super cool toned. And then we have 5, Flamingo Fling, which is going to be a really nice pink, and think like bubblegum pink on steroids. So this is going to have a ton of this has more like hot pink shimmer and more of a silvery white shimmer to it. So definitely the colors look a little different depending on the color of the shimmer. Again, we have more of an opalescent rainbow mix with Fussy. We have more of a purple blue flip with these, and this is going to be more hot pink silver. So Fussy, Icy Amethyst, and Flamingo Fling. And before we say goodbye today, let me just show you the new Chanel Rouge Coco Flashes and how they compare to the Fenty Gloss Bomb Sticks. I know I got a few questions about those, but I had not received my Fenty yet. So this is number 270, Peachy, and this is kind of like a soft golden peach. Now you can see that this is going to be super shimmery, just like the Fenty, but I would say this is a thinner, oilier formula than the Fenty. The Fenty is kind of like a thicker, more glossy texture, and because of that, you can actually build the Fenty up to be a bit more glittery than you can with the Chanel. And this is 272 Rosa. I'm going to put this one here so you can see how it compares to the Icy Amethyst and the Flamingo Fling. You can see it's kind of in between. This is really going to be it's a pink, but we've got that same blue purple glitter that we have in the Icy Amethyst. So this is actually closer to the Icy Amethyst, and because our base shade is a little bit cooler overall, this is actually a cooler tone shade than the Fenty Icy Amethyst. And you can see because that shimmer, we have quite a bit of shimmer for both, but I would say overall, you can definitely build up a more shimmery look with the Fenty compared to the Chanel, but the shade here, just the contrast between the base and the glitter with Rosa looks a little bit more intense. However, it's easier to shear that one out because it is a thinner, more oily texture formula. So I would say those are the biggest differences. Overall, shimmer-wise, they're comparable, but the Fenty has a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed getting ready with me today. Thank you so much for trying out some new products with me and sticking around for some of my favorites. And please share your thoughts down below in the comments. And thank you again for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.